Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's Word Study, where we begin our study on the book of 1 Corinthians. That's 1 Corinthians. Today, we're going to cover chapters 1, 2, and 3. The temple to Aphrodite is in Corinth, where temple prostitutes were provided for male worshippers. Homosexuality was abundant and publicly accepted. Corinth was known for its decadence, Chavarim. No other place in the renewed covenant books is more carnal, nor is any other place more baruch, more blessed. This book was penned by Shaul some 20 to 25 years after Yeshua left this earth and went home to be with Abba Father Yahweh. Also, Corinth is where Shaul wrote the book of Romans. But before we begin today's study, let's bow our hearts and pitch this tent with our beloved Elohim. O Abba Father Yahweh, we come before you, Father, to worship you, to praise you, and to thank you, Father, for our time with you this day. O Abba, as we partake of your word, we thank you for opening our eyes, our ears, and our hearts, causing us to see, hear, and understand your intended meaning, that your word be delivered to us as you intended it originally to be. As we give this day, Father, to you, your beloved Yachid, Yeshua, and your indwelling Ruach HaKodesh, praying in Yeshua's Kodesh name, Yahweh, Yahweh, our Elohim, Yahweh Echad. Amen. From Shaul, that's Paul, called and summoned by the will and purpose of Elohim to be an ambassador, a representative of Yeshua HaMashiach, and also from our brother Sosthenes, to the called out ones of Elohim in Corinth. To those who are made Kodesh, made dedicated through Yeshua HaMashiach, those who are called to be Kodeshim, dedicated ones, together with all those who in any place call upon and give esteem to the name of our Adon Yeshua HaMashiach, both their Adon and ours. And note, my friends, when it talks about any person calling upon the name of our Adon, our Master, Yeshua HaMashiach, they're talking about the name above all names that he was given to proclaim unto man. And that name is Yahweh. Continuing. May the pitching of tents be yours with shalom from Yahweh, our Father, and the Adon Yeshua HaMashiach. I thank my Elohim at all times for you because of the pitching of tents from Elohim, which was bestowed on you in Yeshua HaMashiach, so that in him, in every respect, you were enriched in full power and readiness of speech to speak of your walk, and complete knowledge and illumination to give you full insight into its meaning. In this way, our witnessing concerning Mashiach was so confirmed and established and made sure in you, that you are not consciously falling behind or lacking in any special spiritual endowment while you wait and watch, constantly living in hope for the coming of our Adon Yeshua HaMashiach and his being made visible to all. And he will establish you to the end, keeping you steadfast, giving you strength and securing your vindication. He will be your warrant against all accusation or indictment, so that you will be guiltless and faultless in the day of our Adon, Yeshua HaMashiach. Note, Chavarim, Philippians chapter 1, verse 6 reads, I am convinced and sure of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will continue until the day of Yeshua HaMashiach, right up to the time of his return, developing that good work in you, perfecting and bringing it to its full completion in you. Continuing. Yahweh is reliable and trustworthy, and therefore ever true to his promise, and he can be depended on. By him you were called into companionship and participation with his Yachid, Yeshua HaMashiach, our Adon. But I urge and entreat you, believers, by the name of our Adon, Yeshua HaMashiach, that all of you be in perfect harmony and full agreement in what you say, and that there be no dissensions or factions or divisions among you, but that you be perfectly united in your common understanding and in your opinions and in your judgments. For it has been made clear to me, my brothers, by those of Chloe's household, that there are contentions and wrangling and strife among you. What I mean is this, that each one of you either says, I belong to Shaul, or I belong to Apollos, or I belong to Kepha, Peter, or I belong to Mashiach. Note, Shaul is using these names figuratively here, Chavarim. There were other such persons being followed. Philosophy is the love of wisdom, and the Corinthians loved philosophies. Look at Colossians chapter 2, verse 8, which tells us, see to it that no one carries you off as spoil or makes you yourselves captive by their so-called philosophy and intellectualism and idle fancies, which are all just plain nonsense, following human tradition, that is, following men's crude notions and teachings about the material world, following the rudimentary and elemental teachings of the universe, and disregarding the teachings of Mashiach, rather than being washed by and growing in the word of Yahweh. Continuing, is Mashiach divided into parts? Was Shaul crucified on behalf of you? Or were you baptized into the name of Shaul? I thank Elohim that I did not baptize any of you except Crispus and Gaius, and so no one can ever say that I baptized in my own name. Also, I did baptize the household of Stephanus, but beyond those, I do not recall baptizing anyone else. For Mashiach sent me out not to baptize, but to evangelize by preaching the glad tidings, the good news, and that not with verbal eloquence, so that the stake of Mashiach would not be deprived of force or rendered of no effect. That is to say, so that the crucifixion of Yeshua would not be deprived of force or rendered of no effect. Note, coming up is the verse I was talking about in my last Walking in the Word video, number 12, where I talked about those who think the things of Elohim are moronic. You'll usually see foolishness in most English translations, and I believe moronic fits the bill very nicely. But in our study today, I'm delivering to you what the Ruach gave me to deliver this day, and that is absolute absurdity and nonsense. Continuing. For the story and message of Yeshua's crucifixion, the story and message of the stake, is absolute absurdity and nonsense to those who are perishing and on their way to destruction. But to us who are being saved, it is the manifestation of the power of Elohim. For it is written, I will baffle, I will render useless and destroy the learning of the learned, the philosophy of the philosophers, the cleverness of the clever, and the discernment of the discerning. I will frustrate and nullify them, and I will bring them to nothing. Where is the wise philosopher? Where is the scholar? Where is the debater of this present time and age? Has not Elohim made foolish the absolute absurdity and nonsense of this world's wisdom? After all, since the world, with all its earthly wisdom, fails to know Elohim, Elohim, in his wisdom, is pleased to save those who believe through the absolute absurdity and nonsense of preaching salvation through Yeshua HaMashiach. And, likewise, while Jews demandingly ask for signs and miracles, and Greeks pursue philosophy and wisdom, we preach Mashiach crucified, which to the Jews is a scandal and an offensive stumbling block that springs a snare or a trap, and to the Gentiles it's absurdity and utterly unphilosophical nonsense. But to those who are called, whether Jew or Gentile, Mashiach is the power of Elohim and the wisdom of Elohim, because the absolute absurdity and nonsense of Elohim is wiser than men, and the weakness of Elohim is stronger than men. Indeed, just look at your own calling, believers. Not many of you were considered to be wise according to human estimates and standards. Not many of you were considered to be influential and powerful. Not many of you were considered to be of high and noble birth. No, for Elohim deliberately chose what is absolute absurdity and nonsense in the eyes of the world to dishonor and disgrace the wise. And he deliberately chose what the world calls weak to dishonor and disgrace the mighty and powerful. And Elohim has also deliberately chosen what the world sees as ignoble and of no family, things that are insignificant and despised, even the things that are nothing, that he might dethrone and bring to nothing the things that are, so that no mortal man should have pretense for boasting in the presence of Elohim. Now, it's from Yahweh that you are in Yeshua HaMashiach, who is our wisdom from Elohim. That is, Yahweh's divine plan of salvation, which was previously hidden and is now manifesting itself as our righteousness, and thus making us upright, placing us in right standing with Elohim, making us to be Kodesh, that is, causing us to be wholly dedicated to him, and redemption, providing our ransom from the eternal penalty for sin. So then, as it is written, let him who boasts boast in Yahweh. As for myself, believers, when I came to you, I did not come with lofty words of eloquence, nor did I come with human philosophy and wisdom, proclaiming to you the testimony and evidence of Elohim concerning what he has done through Mashiach for the salvation of men. For I resolved firmly that I would not allow myself to know anything nor anyone among you, but only Yeshua HaMashiach and him crucified. For I passed into a state of weakness, of dread, and great trembling after I had come among you. My language and my message were not set forth with persuasive words of man's wisdom, but they were in demonstration of the Ruach and of power, so that your conviction and your confidence in the truth would never find comfort in the wisdom of men, but only in the power of Elohim. Yet, when we are among spiritually mature believers who are ripe in understanding, we do impart a higher wisdom. But it is indeed not a wisdom of this present age. Indeed, it is not a wisdom of this world, nor of the leaders and rulers of this age. That is, Chavarim, not a wisdom of Satan and his minions, who are being brought to nothing. But rather, what we are setting forth is the wisdom of Elohim, which was once hidden from human understanding and now revealed to us by Elohim, the wisdom which Elohim devised and decreed before the ages to lift us into the glory of his presence. And none of the rulers of this age, none of the satanic rulers of this world understood this. For if they had, they would never have crucified the Adon of majesty. But, on the contrary, as the scripture says, the eye has not seen, the ear has not heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things that Elohim has prepared for those who love him. Note, Shaul is paraphrasing Isaiah 64, verse 4. Gee, he didn't quote directly from the sacred carved in stone KJV? I'm kidding, of course. The KJV only crowd and all those who think Yahweh's word was written in English really should try to pay attention to things like this. Continuing, yet Elohim has revealed them to us by his Ruach, for the Ruach searches diligently, exploring and examining all things, even sounding to the very depths of Elohim. Note, Chavarim, if we understand anything from the word of Yahweh, it is only because his Ruach has revealed it to us. And our responsibility as ambassadors and representatives of Yeshua is not to the receivers of the message, but to the sender. Continuing, for what person perceives the things that pass through a man's thoughts, except the man's own spirit within him? And in the same way, no one can perceive the thoughts of Elohim, except the Ruach of Elohim. Now we have not received the Spirit which is of the world, but the Ruach, who is of Elohim, that we might realize and appreciate the gifts that are freely given to us by Elohim. And we are setting these truths forth, not with words that are taught through human wisdom, but with words that are taught through the Ruach HaKodesh, comparing and interpreting spiritual truths with spiritual understanding to those who have the indwelling Ruach HaKodesh. But the natural, non-spiritual man does not accept or welcome or admit into his heart the gifts and teachings and revelations of the Ruach of Elohim, because they are absolute absurdity and nonsense to him. And he is incapable of knowing them because they are spiritually discerned and appreciated. However, the spiritual man affirms and judges all things, yet is himself to be put on trial and judged by no one. For who has known or understood the mind of Yahweh, that he might guide and instruct him? But we have the mind of Mashiach, and we do hold the thoughts of his heart. However, believers, I was not able to talk to you as to spiritual men, but as to fleshly men in whom the carnal nature predominates, as to mere infants in Mashiach, who are yet unable to speak. I fed you with milk, not solid food, for you were not yet strong enough for it. But even yet, you're not strong enough for it because you are still unspiritual, having the nature of the flesh, under the control of ordinary impulses. For as long as there is envy, jealousy, and wrangling, and factions among you, are you not unspiritual and of the flesh? Are you not behaving yourselves after a human standard and like mere unchanged men? For when one says, I belong to Shaul, and another says, I belong to Apollos, are you not proving yourselves to be ordinary and unchanged? What then is Apollos, and what is Shaul but ministering servants through whom you believed, as the Adon assigned to each? I planted and Apollos watered, but Elohim all the while was making it grow, and Elohim gave the increase. So then, neither is he who plants anything, nor he who waters, but only Elohim is he who makes it grow and increase. He who plants and he who waters are equal, yet each shall receive his own reward according to his own labor. For we are fellow workmen with and for Elohim. You are Elohim's garden, vineyard, and field under cultivation. You are Elohim's building. Note, Tehillah, Psalm 127, unless Yahweh builds the house, he who labors, labors in vain. Continuing, according to the pitching of tents, which Elohim bestows on me, like a skillful architect and master builder, I have laid the foundation, and now another man is building upon it. But let each man be careful how he builds upon it, because no other foundation can be laid but that which is already laid, and that foundation is Yeshua HaMashiach. And if anyone builds upon the foundation, whether it be with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, or straw, the work of each one will become plainly and openly known. It will be shown for what it is. For the day of Mashiach will declare it, because it will be revealed with fire, and the fire will test and critically appraise the character and the worth of the work that each person has done. Note, we see here that our works are tested and approved by fire, Chavarim. And if you look again at our study in 1 Peter, 1 Kepha, specifically chapter 1, verse 7, you will see that the genuineness of our being washed by and growing in Yahweh's word is to be tested by fire as well. Continuing, if the work which any person has built on this foundation survives this test, he will get his reward. But if any person's work is burned up under the test, he will suffer the loss of it all, losing his reward. But he himself will be saved, but only as one who has passed through the fire. Do you not discern and understand that you are Elohim's Mishkan, his temple, and that Elohim's Ruach has his permanent dwelling in you, collectively as a body of Kodeshim, and also individually, if anyone does hurt to Elohim's Mishkan, or corrupts it with false doctrines, or destroys it, Elohim will do hurt to him and bring him to the corruption of death and destroy him. For the Mishkan of Elohim is Kodesh. It's dedicated to him. And you are that Mishkan. You, the Kodesh called out ones, collectively and individually. Let no person deceive himself. If anyone among you supposes that he is wise in this age, let him become a fool, that he may become truly wise. For this world's wisdom is absolute absurdity and nonsense to Elohim. For it is written, He catches the wise in their craftiness. And again, Yahweh knows the thoughts and reasonings of the wise and recognizes how worthless they are. So let no one exult proudly concerning men, boasting of having this or that man as a leader, because all things are yours, whether Shaul or Apollos or Kepha or the universe or life or death, or the immediate and threatening present, or the subsequent and uncertain future, all are yours, and you belong to Mashiach, and Mashiach belongs to Yahweh. Let's bow our hearts, Chavarim. Oh, Abba, Father, we thank you for our time with you in your word this day. We thank you, Father, for the seeds that you have planted in each one of our hearts and in the marvelous way that you have of causing them to take root and grow. As we give this day, Father, to you, your beloved Yachid Yeshua, and your indwelling Ruach HaKodesh, praying in Yeshua's Kodesh name, Yahweh, Yahweh, our Elohim, Yahweh Echad. Amen. That's our study for this week, my friends. As always, I hope and I pray that this study is a beracha to you and yours now and forevermore. Abba willing, I'll see you here again next week. Until then, Shalom, Chavarim.
Now 2,000 years have gone by, it's another working day. Some would rather let it lie, but the question still remain.